When a cat is clearly unwell, the common response is to set up a comfortable spot in a quiet, dark room and close the door so they can rest. We do this because we are applying human recovery needs to feline biology. When we have a fever or a bad cough, total isolation and silence are exactly what we look for. However, that same attempt to provide peace can be biologically detrimental to a cat's recovery process. To understand why, you have to look at how cats process vulnerability. When a cat is weakened by illness and finds themselves alone in a room, they don't feel peaceful. Instead, they perceive themselves as unguarded and exposed to potential threats. This feeling of exposure triggers a state of severe abandonment stress. This stress overrides the healing process. The cat's body enters an active, high-alert survival state, listening for danger rather than focusing on cellular repair. This chart compares energy distribution in the feline body during illness. When stress indicators spike from being left alone, energy for immune function drops sharply. The body diverts biological resources away from fighting infection to fuel a state of constant alarm. By attempting to give the cat a quiet environment, the caregiver may inadvertently trigger an immune-suppressing panic response that makes it harder for the animal to get better. To find what a cat actually needs, we have to look at the evolutionary behavior of feral cat colonies in the wild. In a wild colony, an ill cat typically positions itself near the group's perimeter, close enough to see and hear their peers, but socially disengaged. This has a specific evolutionary logic. The sick cat relies on the collective vigilance of the group for safety. While the healthy cats watch for predators, the sick cat is finally free to rest. This behavior is called social proximity without interaction. Modern domestic cats still rely on this ancient survival software. They require the physical nearness of their human colony to feel secure enough to focus on recovery, even if they don't want physical contact. That external feeling of safety creates a direct pipeline to the cat's internal cellular biology. This is the science of psychoneuroimmunology, the biological link between a cat's perceived safety and the activation of its immune system. When an owner sits quietly in the same room as a sick cat, a neurological shift occurs almost immediately. This diagram illustrates the feline nervous system registering an owner's presence. The brain deactivates the abandonment stress alarm, returning the body to a calm baseline. This triggers the release of immunoglobulin A, or IgA, a frontline antibody tasked with fighting respiratory and mucosal infections. Physical proximity acts as a measurable biological catalyst. By simply being there, you are providing the psychological safety required for the cat's immune system to work at its full capacity. Moving from theory to practice requires a shift in how we think about caregiving at home. Your role changes from an active fixer, who might force interaction, toward a passive guardian. This framework is called the illness vigil. To perform the vigil, bring a quiet activity, like reading a book or working on a laptop, into the room where your cat is resting. The goal is simply to exist in their space. It is essential to resist the urge to pet, talk to, or coddle the cat. Sitting still can be difficult for owners. It often feels like we aren't doing enough when a pet is clearly unwell. But while the human feels helpless, the cat's body is receiving the specific environmental cues it needs to prioritize immune function. Providing this silent, non-interactive presence creates the necessary conditions for a cat to fight infection. It is a scientifically validated way to support their natural recovery process. You're sitting on the couch, feeling a sudden rush of affection for your cat. You reach out your hand to gently stroke their back, and they simply turn around and walk away. It's a moment most cat owners know well. We usually take it personally, viewing that exit as a quiet rejection. We wonder if they're angry, or if they simply don't care about us the way we care about them. But we're looking at this through a human lens. When a person walks away, it usually signifies a rift. Cats, however, navigate their world using an entirely different psychological framework. That moment when they turn their back on your affection is not an insult. It is actually a deep, silent psychological assessment. Every time your cat walks away from you, they are checking to see how you react. Passing this test signals to the cat that their agency is safe in your presence, which allows a deeper level of trust to develop naturally. To see what's really happening, look at how cats came to live with us. For thousands of years, dogs were selectively bred to desire constant closeness and follow human commands. Cats are a different story. They essentially domesticated themselves by choosing to live near early human settlements. Because they were never bred to be subservient, they never lost their primal independence. Cats remain entirely autonomous. They value their own agency, the freedom to choose what they do with their bodies above almost everything else. And this is where we run into trouble. When a cat tries to end an interaction, our instinct is to chase that affection. We might gently pull them back, pick them up, or follow them into the hallway for one more scratch. While this feels like love to us, it can feel like a threat to them. Every time you restrict your cat's movement or force them to stay put, they learn that being near you means losing control of their own body. By imposing human forms of physical affection onto an animal that relies on independence, we accidentally compromise their sense of safety. Eventually, a cat that feels trapped will stop approaching you altogether. Why does control matter quite so much? Well, cats might be fierce hunters, but they are also small. In the wild, they are just as likely to be prey for larger animals. Because of that physical vulnerability, a cat's nervous system links choice directly to survival. If they cannot escape a situation, their brain registers a survival threat. They need control simply to feel safe. Imagine a room you can leave freely. Now imagine someone suddenly locks all the doors. That panic is exactly how a cat feels held against their will. When they pull away, they're asking, "Do you respect me enough to let me go?" The answer is found in your restraint. When your cat decides they want to leave, you do nothing. You do not reach out, and you do not follow them. You just sit and let them walk away. By choosing not to react, you communicate in a language they deeply understand. You prove your presence will never cost them their freedom, which is how you pass their test. When you consistently honor their choice to leave, you change the way they perceive your proximity. They start to associate being near you with a sense of total empowerment. This chart compares how cats respond to different types of contact. Research shows that cats who are allowed to initiate the interaction on their own terms show a 300% increase in affection levels compared to those forced into contact. This creates a boomerang effect. The owners whose cats trail them from room to room and sleep beside them all night are typically the ones who let their cats leave every single time. The more freedom you give them to go, the more they will choose to stay. Lowering your hand when they walk away is a high form of respect. You prioritize their autonomy over your own desire for touch, which is the most effective way to communicate safety to a cat. In the feline world, love is measured by the freedom granted to navigate their space. When you provide that freedom, you stop being a potential threat and become a trusted companion, earning a bond that lasts a lifetime. You turn off the TV, head for bed, and flick that hallway switch on so your cat can see their way around. It feels like the right thing to do. But flipping that switch actually causes them immediate physical discomfort and temporary blindness. We assume that because we stumble in the dark, they will too. We project our own visual limitations onto them, thinking they require human equivalent lighting to map the living room safely. To fix this, we need to rethink how we light our homes at night. Overhauling the lighting allows them to navigate according to their biology, lowering the constant sensory strain on their eyes. Before we audit your home's layout, you'll need to gather a few supplies. Grab 2 to 4 low-wattage, warm-toned mate lights. Our standard habits have unintentionally turned our houses into hostile environments for our pets. A targeted adjustment is required to make the space safe for them again. To understand why a standard bulb hurts them, we have to look at the gap between human and feline optical hardware. This mirror-like layer in a cat's eye is the tapetum lucidum. It bounces unabsorbed light back through the retina, giving a second pass. This chart shows cats see clearly in light 6 times lower than humans. When you introduce a standard 60-watt bulb into an eye optimized for shadows, you overload a highly sensitive system, instantly triggering pain. Once you factor in that 6 times multiplier, it becomes clear why standard household lighting creates a state of constant overexposure for the feline optic nerve. Before we plug in the new hardware, we have to audit how your cat actually moves through the house at night. Map out the specific physical paths they take. trace routes from their sleeping spots directly to the litter box and over to their food bowls. Next, turn off every main overhead light. You need to assess the actual baseline darkness of these transit routes without any artificial help. Now identify your danger zones. These are the specific spots, like a long hallway or a sharp corner, where you usually leave a bright light on out of habit. We aren't aiming for a pitch black house. A complete absence of photons makes the space unnavigable for you, and it prevents your cat's optic hardware from working optimally. By mapping these precise commute paths, you can apply minimal, targeted illumination right where it is needed, without flooding the rest of the environment. With the map established, we can select the correct hardware. You must throw out standard blue light LEDs and bright white smart bulbs. These default to a maximum harsh brightness that defeats the purpose. This shows exactly what we need on the right. Fixtures must be ultra-dim, heavily shielded, and exclusively emit warm-toned frequencies like amber or soft yellow. These specific warm frequencies are gentle on the photoreceptors. They bypass the severe visual disruption that concentrated blue light forces onto the feline eye. Selecting the correct light spectrum is critical. The wrong wavelength triggers the same biological distress as your main overhead bulb, which renders this adjustment useless. Now take your amber fixtures and install them strictly along the transit routes you mapped out earlier. Placement rules are strict. Plug these in exclusively at floor level, ensuring the hardware casts its glow downward rather than projecting outward. Avoid placing any light directly across from the litter box. A direct beam shines straight into your cat's eyes while they are stationary and vulnerable. To verify the setup, get down on your hands and knees. Look at the fixtures from your cat's eye level to ensure there is absolutely no visible glare. Finally, commit to a strict overheads off routine. Kill the main lights at the exact same time every night to stop interfering with your cat's natural circadian rhythms. This specific downward placement gives you just enough floor visibility to walk safely, while completely bypassing your cat's sensitive field of vision. Take one last walkthrough tonight. Verify that the house is primarily dark, but that you can navigate securely using only those floor-level guides. Watch how your cat behaves in this environment. You'll see relaxed posture, naturally wide pupils, and a confident stride through the shadows. By making this simple adjustment, you have eliminated a source of physiological strain that was previously invisible. Share this protocol with other cat owners. Swapping out a few bulbs is a fast, mandatory foundation for humane, scientifically sound feline care.